Good day, everybody, and welcome to another session of Education for a Better World. I am Abdi Lajavardi, your host, and I have with me a dear friend and a colleague, Professor Matt Druhe. And Matt is a dear friend, and it's wonderful to have you on our session.
Thanks,
Welcome,
Abdi.
Matt.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Matt, maybe you can start off with our audience and tell them a little bit about you and your journey, how you got to this point.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. So born and raised in the Bay Area of California. So if you're a Bay Area sports guy or girl, we have a lot in common. Warriors just won. Congrats to that team. But lived in California on and off for about 20 years. Have lived in Arizona on and off for about the same time frame, with a sprinkled experience in Chicago, which was exciting, but at the same time was an opportunity to live close to family. On my wife's side, we took it. And then, as we all know, life takes you in circles, and found my way back in sunny Arizona. So that's a little bit about my personal journey. From a work profession, though, I've been in the higher ed industry for, the calendar tells me, almost 20 years now. Started off as an admissions rep at a for-profit school, not really knowing what I was doing, but I knew I wanted to change people's lives and have them understand what opportunities were out there from an academic standpoint. And that really opened a career in education that I didn't even know existed. So I spent, like I mentioned, decades on the enrollment side of the house, all the way through degree completion. And really that's where my passion is at, on the degree completion side, and really having folks find what their passion is in life, having them align and identify what they want to do when they wake up every morning, what wakes them up at 6 a.m., what keeps them up at 2 a.m., you name it. But there's an alignment there. And some folks have to understand every opportunity they have is going to be unique and different for them. Some it's a 4-year degree, some it's a trade school, some it's somewhere in between. But knowing my background and experience puts me kind of in the forefront of where students make those decisions. It's pretty fun.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. And you know, I have known you and worked with you for several years, and I know your passion and commitment to the students, and that's without a doubt is a very important factor that I am excited for you to share your insight about really effective education. And you know, sometimes you know, you've gone through a school for many years, and you know, you have seen many professors at different settings, different institutions. So when you think about an effective educator, effective teacher, what are some of the attribute that comes to your mind?
Yeah, definitely. For me, in my experience, instructors, it's understanding a little bit about their core competency, right? It's understanding they're an industry leader, potentially an industry expert. They bring with them the technical knowledge to what they're teaching, whether it's business, whether it's something in healthcare, social work, or even at a trade school, someone who has 30 years of HVAC experience. They're bringing in that technical background. Students will learn from that, right? They're eager to gain 30 years of experience in a semester course, so to speak, right? If you can absorb it anyway. The other competency with instructors that's so important is the connection with students. And I think that's really what sets some very phenomenal instructors and professors apart. You can come to the table with the 25, 30 years of industry experience and knowledge. If you lack the ability to have students learn from your teachings, that's kind of the challenge I've seen in the past. Where instructors do a really good job is understanding where their students are, right? It's understanding who the adult learner is, it's identifying not just that my students are adult learners, but what's their background? Do they come from an educational academic background? Who are they? Have they struggled before? Was high school a challenge for them? So it's not just about teaching content, it's identifying who their audience is. And any great leader has those skill sets. And as instructors and teachers, you are a leader in that classroom. So I think it's connecting and bridging that gap from their technical expertise to understanding how to have their students understand what they're teaching.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And one of the other aspects that we have talked about is that elements of knowing how to use that information, right? Once you're in the field, what is the application of those knowledge and what you have, and again, having that experience to know how to transfer what you know to the students and how they can then be able to transition with confidence when they are in a workforce is essential. So
it really
now from a perspective of administration, you've been in administration and you have worked with a lot of great school and university, presidents and deans and what you have. What are some of the things that a school should do to create environment where both the teachers can perform at the optimum levels, and then how could students, both on selecting the right students as well as creating an environment that is helping them to grow and be who their potential is, what their potential is. What are some of the things they can do?
Wow. It's an awesome question, and one that I think there's multiple different avenues towards. I think first and foremost, deans, presidents, even your tenured professors on campus within a university have to understand students have a ton of options. If I'm a student looking to get a graduate degree in social work, for example, my options are almost unlimited. I can go to a very small four-year school. I could go to a private school. I can go online from an institution that could be either one of those. So it's just not about the fact that you're offering the program. It's understanding now what student is going to be attracted to your brand. And most students, in my experience, are attracted to a brand, whether it's a regional location, they grew up on the West Coast, and they're like, I don't care where I go, it needs to be a West Coast school in California. Or they love, a basketball team or a football team, and they want to go to that school. So students have options. I think what administrators have to understand is that since students have options, their audience landscape is changing. It's not your student who's 20, 30 miles down the street anymore. This is potentially a student 3 time zones away. So how are you connecting with that student and creating an environment that is fostering learning and teaching that is either remote, or maybe the student has moved to your institution and they bring with them a completely different background and experience. So I think in a nutshell it's understanding your audience, understanding who your customer is. End of day, these students do view themselves as customers going to school. They're paying for a product or a service, and their expectations are much higher than what we saw a generation or two ago. So I think that's shifting. Additionally, in terms of just from an admissions process, folks really have to understand at the university or college level that students do have choices and decisions, and your typical resume and couple letters of recommendation, everyone's doing that. So how are you finding your next best student? And there's a lot that goes into that, from the interviewing process and selections committee, you name it. So I think the environment's changing quicker than a lot of schools can either keep up with or have the awareness to keep up with on.
Thank you. Those are very good insight, for institutions, because the world is changing. And and any good business, doesn't matter you're a public institution or you're a private institution, they depend on growing and striving by means of how happy and successful their clienteles are.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we understand those clients and the more we can serve them in a way that is leading to their objective, right? So when you look at the students today that are looking at different programs, doesn't matter, vocational school, undergraduate or graduate program, they have a basic objective that they come to a given institutions, right?
Yep.
And a lot of time is really how they are going to end up in a workforce, immediately after graduation or dawn, some stage after they finish their that degree and the degree behind it. But their objective sooner or later is to go into the workforce, right? So, and this is nothing new. We always have had advisory boards. People get together and they talk about, how they can make their graduate more employable by industries. That's the whole main objective of these advisory boards. But yet the complaint is always that students are not as prepared as we want them to be. There is a gap. What are some of the things that institutions can do in order to close that gap of what graduates, are graduating with?
Yeah.
And then how the employers are requiring certain skills?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things, Abdi, that come to mind. One, it's time and money for students, right? So how quick is your program structured? How quick can they learn it today, use it tomorrow? The cost component is definitely a factor with a lot of these students, especially the adult learner. They're most likely out of pocket or financing what they're doing. So for the student learner, it's what's my quickest time frame at the lowest cost, and that's what's at the forefront of their mind. They don't also associate low cost with low quality. That's not a concept that they have. I think in academia itself, there's a notion of price point equals quality, and that's not true for the adult student learner. More importantly, students want to learn and use it tomorrow and understand, hey, I just gained this experience. How's it going to help me tomorrow to get a raise, to get a promotion, to get that next job, to put more money in my bank account, to get that next car, stop renting and buy, that type of thing. As institutions embrace that concept, understanding if you're an institution providing undergraduate programs, 4-year programs taking on average 5.5, 5.33 years to complete. Students don't have that long. They need to come in. Boot camps, I think, are a phenomenal opportunity. Credentials or stackable programs where you can do a year of work, get real world experience, come back, take another year of school, and then stack it. And then after 4 years, you just don't have a degree, but you have a degree with real world knowledge, experience, that type of thing. So the product of what institutions are providing needs to keep up with the demand of what the student's looking for. There's always the analogy of, Blockbuster versus Amazon, and our student audience wants the Amazon. They want to buy it today, use it tomorrow, get it today. They don't want to have to drive to a big box store and buy it. They want to go online and get it. So if you can make content extremely accessible, if you can make learning accessible, students will seek that out. If they have to do something that's out of their norm in terms of this is going to impact me on how I organize my day, I got daycare, I got obligations, I got work, they're not going to get to your product. So having it be accessible is paramount.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And in that regard, you brought up something that I want to follow up on, and that is, you talked about the stackable program, how to create real work experience along with the academic and create that readiness component for the students. So some schools, utilize that for internship or externship, whatever they call it. And what is your view on that? And I know you made some comment about it. And then at the same time, how early do you think these internships can be developed? and some of the elements that can make a successful internship, because a lot of institutions may already have internship and versus some institutions that don't have internship. But internship, you know, sometimes it cannot be successful by just the means of wanting to have it. What are some of the things that you can do in order to create a successful internship program?
Yeah, I think for me, an internship that looks successful is one where the internship's the application of what's learned in the classroom, right? So you can learn content in the classroom, have an internship experience that builds on those key learning principles, outcomes, objectives, you name it. Almost as if the internship is a approach of, here's what I've learned, here's what I'm doing to then come back. Almost as if it's a real live application of problem-based learning, or instead of having your semester project type of thing, internships can be used as a modality or an avenue to get that same experience, but real or live, almost from a approach of a student in a PhD or doctoral program going through a dissertation. It's living through your research, but probably at the undergrad level, to where they can do a 6-month or a year internship, gain experience that's real, it's tangible, they can put it on a resume, but at the same time feeling academic requirements, to where they're progressing forward in their academic career quicker.
Wonderful, wonderful. I couldn't agree with you more, because I do see that the world is changing, and the students, in order for them to be able to have the confidence that they have the ability to do the job, it is important to, you know, have that practicality from the knowledge while they're in a school, but the internship where it gets them to go outside and actually deal with real clients and real situations is a really added value. So I know you and I have talked about mentorship, right? Mentoring, and both from having a mentorship, you know, for individuals to benchmark their growth and you know, anchor in where they want to go, as well as individual providing mentorship to other people, right? Give me your perspective on that, and you know, how could schools to promote and actually structure programs that make those possible for not only their students but their staff and people alike, and what is your perspective on that?
Yeah, you know, I mean, in the business world, regardless of what industry you're in, the leaders are always mentoring their peers, their counterparts. And I think a lot of folks don't realize what mentorship is all about. It's just not, you know, teaching and training. It's really showing somebody hands-on how to do something different, more effective, more efficient, you name it. I think in the academic setting, as I mentioned before, a lot of adult learners, they're selecting their schools based off of a brand. So if you're in California, for example, phenomenal brand institutions out there, but they're also tied into phenomenal industries, whether it's aerospace, whether it's healthcare, you name it. Students are attracted to those institutions based on the local the economy and demographic that's out there, which means they're attracted to your school for who's teaching in the classroom. I think professors, instructors have a huge opportunity to mentor students around that real world experience. And I think it's a play off what we just spoke about regarding internships, where your instructor or professor can really mentor and guide the student on, hey, this is what you just read content wise, but this is what the real world's about, right? So I think it kind of goes hand in hand in the sense that as a student's learning real world applicational experience, that they're being mentored at the same time.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And you know, I actually, not only for when you start the you know, a career, but if you want to grow in a career, if you want to fulfill yourself in the next stages of life, I think having a good mentor can play a huge role. But we need to kind of teach students and create those opportunity that individuals then get used to, how to define a mentor, how to utilize mentoring to help ourselves, benchmark ourselves, and then have that responsibility to go back and provide those same type of services for the people that are coming right behind them. Because really, this is how these things can work, not only one side of the equation, but developing people to have the same commitment to help others when the time is right.
Definitely is, yeah.
Now, one other thing that you and I have talked about quite often, when we get a chance, is that elements of professional mindset, right? So, and as you know, there is so many different definitions for professional mindset. So my question to you, Professor Matt, is what's your definition of professional mindset, and how does professional mindset has played a role in your life to get you to where you are?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what a professional mindset was some 20 years ago. So if I knew what it was back then, I don't know if I'd be here today. But that said, for me, the professional mindset is about being agile. It's about understanding where you're at, having awareness on the environment you're in. So a professional mindset, someone who's eager to grow, it's a growth mindset. It's not fixed. It's understanding, here's the experience I have, and where can I go and what can I do with it? For me, professional mindset, it's the apex or the combination of being agile and having a growth mindset. And that's your professional mindset. If you're fixed, you're not going to be able to really grow, whether that's grow professionally, emotionally, spiritually, you name it. The environment I come from, we're always hiring individuals who have a growth mindset. If they come to the table with just 20 years experience, that's great. We're looking for the experience, but we need someone who's going to be eager to grow and learn, be vulnerable, make mistakes. Raising your hand saying, hey, can I try this? And we'll say, yes, you can try it. And if you crash and burn, that's fine. You tried it. But if you have an individual that doesn't have those characteristics, it's very difficult for them to grow. And if they're not growing, they're not learning and they're not gaining traction in their personal life, professional life, or in their career.
Well said. Well said. Thank you. Then my last question to you is about opportunities and challenges. You, as somebody with many years of experience in education and a great educator yourself, when you look at in today's environment, what do you see as challenges, or maybe name a few challenges and opportunities that our industry is facing?
Yeah, I think within the higher ed industry, the biggest challenge right now is time and money. How long is it going to take for, if I'm a potential student, to go through a degree program? How much is it going to cost? And then what's my ROI? So if I'm spending 4 years at $30,000 a year, 120 grand, is my first year out, am I going to make that money back, or how long will it take for me to make my money back? That's at the forefront of the adult learner, regardless of age. That's what their thought process is. So I think one of the biggest challenges is understanding, again, how accessible can we provide training, whether it's through boot camps, whether it's through a true academic 4-year degree, to a learner that can then turn around, use it tomorrow, and be gainfully employed going forward. At the same time, I mentioned this earlier, it's a very saturated market at times. Some institutions, yes, your bread and butter is within a select couple of degree programs. Other schools, students can get that same degree almost anywhere. So you have to identify what your niche is, what is going to attract a student to your brand, to your program, to your school, to your instructors, knowing there's several players out there. 10 years ago, for example, online learning was just kind of a concept and was easily frowned upon by several institutions. You look at some schools now, and online learning, online programs are just part of who they are now. ASU Online, that's very common to take a degree program and it's online. Other schools are adapting to that. But I think the challenge then comes from scale, infrastructure, everything in between. How do you adapt your institution to meet the needs of those students?
Okay, very well. So I have to tell you, I truly enjoyed our conversation,
Yeah,
and I look
thank you.
forward to having you to be a guest on our future sessions. But with my thanks and appreciation, I wanted to ask you if you want to leave a last word or message for our audience.
Yeah, definitely. I think for those in the higher education space, whether you're an administrator, an instructor, professor, all the way up to the president level, it's understanding the following. Students definitely want to be learning, they want to grow, they want to better themselves. You have to find the students with where they're at. Back in the day, they came to you, now you have to go to them. It's just the shift in higher education. I think as an adult learner, there's tons of options for you, which is great. In the past, it probably wasn't. And you're in the driver's seat, but you have to understand where you're going and where you want to get to. And I think there's a lot of resources out there for individuals to understand, hey, this program is the right option for me. And where do I go from a next step perspective? So hopefully that makes sense to maybe two different types of audiences are out there. The great thing is we're in it together. We're always learning. I think all of us want to leave things just a bit better than how we found them. So I appreciate being on the journey with you, Abdi.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Great. Thank you.